Well, Amanda, thank you so much for joining me here on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm really excited to have you here. We've got some great stuff to talk about, and particularly about how to just package a profitable offer really for the audience so they obviously know, because I know it's one of those questions that so many people ask. But before we get there, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Wonderful. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. As you mentioned, my name's Amanda Accioly. Currently, I reside in Tampa, Florida. I actually was born and raised in Nebraska. I went to school out in San Diego, so I'm a torero. I went to the University of San Diego. And then for a short time, I lived in Brazil. And I always have to mention that because it is where I met my husband. And so I'm married and I have two small children. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. And we've been living now in Tampa, Florida for almost 2 years this summer. And then just the other big part about like who I am and where I came from is right out of college, I hopped into the finance industry. So I was starting out in just administration in finance and slowly over time developed that career into a variety of different things. Dipped my toe in some operations and then ended up in financial sales, financial goal planning. And then we'll get to this, and now I'm here working from home, and I focus on helping other women build their own business from scratch and how we get there. So yeah. We'll get to that further, but that's at least the backstory of where I come from.
Now, you call yourself a business strategist, and I really like this because obviously you've got that financial background and you've had all of that experience. But what kind of led you to become a business strategist, and what was the kind of push and motivation behind that pivoting point almost where that led you to where you are now?
Yes, I'll circle back specifically to the strategist piece because there was some thought in that actual role and title, but really how it came to be was, I got married, I had 2 kids. Throughout working in corporate with children, I just really started to feel that toll on the grind of dropping children off at daycare, spending 9-10 hours away, picking them up to just hurry home, have dinner, take a bath and go to bed. It was just this constant grind over and over and over again. And I think really that feeling of I wasn't super passionate about my career. I was successful by, the world's view that I, made a nice salary. I had my own office, I had a senior title. Some of these things that I think more the old school ways would have said, oh, Amanda's a success. But I could then step back and look at my life and I wasn't super happy and I didn't have this deep feeling of passion or joy for what it was that I was doing. I was providing for my family, yes, which is extremely important, but I wanted more than that. So that was when it started to, I was searching things online like, how do I work from home? How do I build my own business? Like all these kinds of things you do at midnight when you're wanting to become an entrepreneur. And so that was really kind of the tipping point for me, that true motivation for wanting to work outside of a 9-to-5 office job and do something that had a little bit more passion, a little bit more desire behind it.
So I find it very interesting because just tell us a little bit about what you do as a business strategist. I mean, yes, it's amazing title. You said that you've given a lot of thought about it and there's a lot of work that went into it. But what does that actually mean for those of the audience who doesn't understand?
Most people are probably more familiar with just a business coach. The reason I would say that I stick with strategist, this comes from just who I am as a person. I'm a very black and white type A type of personality. Doesn't mean I don't have emotions, but I just see the world in a very, everything has an answer or a solution, or we can get from A to Z in any way. So that was part of it. The other piece is that I feel a coach is someone that, yes, may give you strategy, but is also that person that's driving every part of what goes on in the mindset as well, in just a lot further. I feel when I work with a female entrepreneur one-on-one, I'm giving them, here's your blueprint, here's your strategy, go do the work. I promise it will work if you just listen and follow the rules, right? Yeah. So strategist really, because I can find so many pathways that I want to lead you. You just need to listen and follow along, and I'll lead you to success. So that's why I really stuck with strategist. And then I pull in parts from my career of, because again, I'm so black and white, things like operations and running a business efficiently come just second nature to me. So if you are trying to scale that business, but your operations are a complete disaster, it's, here's the template for how I want your operations to look. Now go fix it, right? So if that means they need to hire some additional people to help them build that out, then they do so. But again, really giving them that blueprint, that strategy, and then they have to go do the work.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that as well, because I'm a strategic business coach. So it kind of shows the difference between what you do and what I do as well. But also for the audience listening, those who just want the strategy, just go get the blueprint and go and run with it. But then obviously there are those who feel they need on the mindset, they need that kind of work as well in order to keep them pushing and keep them motivated. But all of this kind of segues very well into what you want to talk to us about today. And that is how to package your perfect offer before you go out there, obviously getting a client as an example. But talk to us a little bit about that, because I know that you're talking about supply versus demand, the actual need. Tell us what you meant by that.
Yes. So a lot of people that I've worked with over the past, they come to me in just this deep desire to run a profitable business and make a lot of money. Yes, that's great and wonderful, but they also are stuck with this myth that they can't do just one thing or they won't make enough money. So time and time again, I try to break this myth and tell them that if we can get your business down to one main product, service, offer, you're able to sell it to more people in a faster, more efficient way, because you're jumping on, a discovery call, and it's not, here's my a la carte menu of 10 different things. What's going to work for you, right? It's just, so that's kind of the back end of it. But one of the first things that I do when building a profitable offer for someone is I want them to understand, what is it that they actually like doing, right? So maybe I'm working with a service provider and they are, maybe they're a marketing agency, but they kind of cover all things marketing. Again, it's a little bit confusing or difficult to now go throw that into the world when you might not know what that entails. Yeah. So inside of marketing, what is it that you enjoy doing? Are you focusing on the branding? Are you a brand specialist? Do you really enjoy web design? Do you enjoy graphic design and you want to make all the little, graphics inside of a workbook? Maybe you like to design ebooks. I don't know, but the world of marketing is so large that if you don't niche down a little bit further to something first that you really enjoy doing, it's going to be hard to scale that business. So that first piece of enjoyment is so important, because if it becomes your life and you don't enjoy it, why did you become an entrepreneur to begin with?
Exactly.
And that's just my own feeling of, if you're running your own business, it better be something around what you like doing.
Yeah, I've had the same kind of experience where when I talk to my students or my clients in particular, and they're coming to me and they're going, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this, but I'm not seeing any results. I'm trying everything to make money, but I don't see the results. So I always use the analogy and saying it's that kind of sense where you're standing with all of these pies in front of you, but you're trying to grab all of them. You're literally standing with all your fingers in the pies. Instead of just retracting your fingers, grab one pie and enjoy it fully. Because once you spread yourself too thin, you're not going to be focused. You're not going to see the results because you're not going to have the time, the capability, nor the energy to really focus on that one thing that you absolutely enjoy.
Yes. Well, and so then that next step is where we really, as you mentioned, we go into the supply and the demand of it. If you, again, are this marketing agency that you haven't niched down into what your actual service is, it's difficult for you to really have this specialized service that says, this is the only thing I focus in, but I am amazing and wonderful and it's my top skill. The demand for that particular skill could be really high. Every single business needs a brand. Every single business needs a logo, something like that. Again, now your supply or your demand is extremely high because you know exactly what it is that you're serving. So it goes along with that piece of you've got to niche down and understand what it is.
Yeah.
But when you do that, you now all of a sudden understand there is a demand for it. It's again one of those myths of, but if I only focus on one thing, no one's going to want to hire me. No, it's actually the reverse.
Yes.
I always tell the story. I had a client that was in the equine industry. I don't know anyone that is a specialist in marketing in the equine industry. But the luxury for her is that when I come across any other service provider in the equine industry, I only have one person that I can refer business to, and that's her. You know, so that's where, again, that pricing now becomes even more valuable because her demand is now going to be pretty small for what that, you know, what she can offer, but now she can increase her price because she's specializing in that particular niche, particular industry.
Now, talk to us a little bit as well about competition, because this is something that I find a lot of people say. In particular, if like, and I'm sure you might have similar examples when we're telling them to niche down in particular, and we're saying, you listen, you need to focus on the one thing. The response that I always get is, yes, but there's so much competition in there. And I don't know if you had similar examples and if you want to touch up on that a little bit as well.
Yes, I think of, we'll stick with marketing for a hot minute, but I think about marketing and people worry of web design. Oh my gosh, there's web designers everywhere. Yes, there are. But again, the more that you can niche down and focus in on, this is going to go into that piece of what you enjoy. What kind of people do you enjoy? Do you enjoy building websites for coaches, maybe for female coaches? Well, now all of a sudden, again, now you're niche down where if someone's looking specifically for a web design build out for a female coach, you probably have built something that looks like what they're going to want to look for. The piece about the competition as far as it relates to pricing is that we do want to know what our competitors are offering so that your price is in alignment, so to say. More so that you understand if you are top dollar or if you're bottom dollar. You know, my example that I always like to give is, sure, we can all be a Russell Brunson and charge $1 million to build a funnel, but the reality is there's not a million Russell Brunsons. There's not that many million marketing geniuses in the world. So you don't have to feel like you're going to charge, you know, $10,000 for your web design. So that competition piece comes into play. Yes, there is competition. But again, I believe the more that you can specialize or niche down into what it is that you're doing, now all of a sudden this big sea of marketing people becomes a lot smaller. Therefore, your competition gets a little bit smaller. And like I said, you get to now increase your price even higher because you can say, well, I've built, you know, a website for 50 other female coaches. I have all the confidence that I can build the one that you're looking for.
Yes.
Like, oh, okay. Well, great. You know, I mean, you say something like that, they don't really have anything to say, but where do I sign?
Yeah. Oh, I love that you're putting it that way. It makes so much more sense. And for those of you listening, please, please, please hear what Amanda is saying, because I know that for some of you, there's so many inner struggles, especially when it comes to competition. But, you know, it's just one of those things that, as Amanda is saying, once you start niching down and just finding out what the one offer is, the one focus point that you need to have, and things are just going to become so much more easier as well. I think, you know, this whole kind of ideas becoming overwhelmed and finding that you're struggling the whole time, you're just going to find things are going to start flowing. Things are going to start happening much quicker for you once you start going into those kind of like mode of niching down, figuring out what the competition is, where you're sat at, and raising your prices. I love that you're saying that, because so many people fear of raising their prices as well.
You know, when you start working with people who will value what it is that you're worth, you will feel better about offering that price. But when you get on a call and say, sure, I can build your website for $500, some might go back to that, well, you're going to get what you pay for. When the next person just quoted them $5,000, they actually might end up going with the person that's $5,000 because they want to make sure that it's a premium service.
Yeah.
So again, it's another one of those myths that I try to knock down is cheap service. Some people, they don't, yes, you might find people that want to pay $500 day in and day out, but they might not be your ideal client because they're not going to value what it is that you're actually giving them.
The other thing that I want to ask you is, you mentioned earlier about possibly talking about the bare minimum what is the bare minimum that you can charge for your hours? And I
Sure.
think this also kind of works with what we're just discussing now about raising your prices. Apart from just checking to see what your competition is doing, so you can kind of make sure that you're in line with that, but also what is the minimum that you need to go for in order to make sure that you don't shoot yourself in the foot, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a great question. And I love doing this with service providers that try to charge themselves bill themselves by the hour. Where that can get really tricky is there's plenty of things that you're still doing outside of that hour. It is my number one philosophy for anyone that I work with that they're going to leave and not be charging by the hour. They are going to charge either a project price or a monthly retainer fee, something like that, because you're selling a value, not a dollar for dollar.
Yeah.
My work and here's what it is. To figure out really what that bare minimum is, I always like to go back to basics. What is minimum wage? Okay, is your job a minimum wage? Is your job worth flipping burgers at McDonald's? Like, well, no. Like, okay, well, we just broke it down and you're making $15 an hour, for example. So that's always just an easy thing is, okay, if that project took you 10 hours and, however much you charged them, divide it out and see what that looked like. Most people probably won't be satisfied, or a lot of people won't be satisfied with what they actually billed for that particular project. Things that go into increasing that hourly minimum would be, again, like your specialty or a very specific skill. I'm not a web designer. I'm not a bookkeeper. I'm not many, many, many things. Therefore, if that's what I'm hiring, I know that their project fee is going to be a lot higher because it's a specialized skill that I can't go learn overnight.
Yes.
I can't go reconcile my books in a day. It will take me a lot of hours to figure that out. Therefore, again, you want to increase what that bare minimum is. For anyone in the virtual space, I usually give them a minimum of $35 an hour. That's going to put you at a regular salary job if we were to annualize it.
Yes.
Okay, but again, are you worth a $40,000 salary? Well, no. I was making six figures in my corporate job. Okay, so then your hourly needs to be at least $50, $60 an hour. And then again, you're able to increase it, that bare minimum, based on what sort of service you're providing. And then that's where we kind of go back through the whole cycle of what's the supply and the demand.
Yes.
Right? If people are waiting outside your door wanting to work with you, now your hourly is $200 or $400 or $1,000. You can't serve everybody. So therefore, the only way to kind of separate that is to continue to increase your price. And not in a greedy way. You want to serve people, but if you have all these people waiting to work with you, you have to figure it out somehow.
Yes, I love that you're putting it in so much sense, because even for me as a novice, just being a coach myself and knowing that I've increased my prices over time, but now hearing this, I'm going, oh my gosh, that is so much sense. It makes so much sense. And I'm hoping,
let's bring it down to kindergarten level.
Exactly.
I've got a kindergartner, and it's like I want to bring it down to the base level and make you understand this is what we're working with, and let's move it to the next level.
Yeah, and I'm sure the audience got that as well. So I'm sure there's some of them now making a big note in their notebook going, raise my prices.
It is the number one thing it's my number one success story of any client. I've had people literally increase their bottom dollar 30, 40, 50% because they got off a call and went back to clients and said, hey, my price is now this. And it's just the easiest way to make more money is to increase your rate. It's the easiest thing you can do.
And also remember that by increasing your rate, it doesn't mean that now you have to be fearful and thinking, well, nobody's going to pay that. That's not the case, because now you've gone through the system, just like Amanda said, in order to make sure that you package that profitable offer. You've raised your prices. Now you look at the supply versus demand. Now you're going to focus just on one offer. And you're just going to be very much more clear about it. And that is going to help you attract the right audience who can afford your service in particular. So it's like a circle. It just all works together, but you're going to have all the elements in place in order for this wheel to keep on turning. And Well,
the example I like to give for myself is if I'm increasing my program price or my hourly call price or whatever it might be, and maybe I have a spout of fear of like, I don't know, is that the right price? All I need to do is to add more value to that price. So is it now in my next 90-day program that I've partnered with a mindset coach to come in once a month, right? Because I don't do mindset training. So some of these things that I could now add value, it doesn't mean that I have to spend more time, but some easy ways that I could add value that then might make me feel, oh yeah, this is worth it. You know, maybe you add a couple of freebies to another program, a couple of bonuses to a new offer, things like that, that you could build once. And then that'll continue to keep that that value high on what your offer is.
Absolutely. I love that you brought that in as well, because so many people think, well, maybe I need to bring my price down. And I always say, no, don't bring your price down. As a matter of fact, even raise it and add more value to it.
Yes.
But never, ever, ever bring your price down. And I'm not a huge fan of discounts as well. I think I've got one package that I'm working on that I offer a discount, but that's only through a certain channel, through a certain funnel. But apart from that, I don't believe in discounts. I believe it's, like you're saying, adding the additional value rather.
I agree with you. The only time, and I don't even call it a discount really, I promote people that take action. So if they sign on the call with me, I will give them, you know, a couple $100 off of our project, not as a discount, but as a thank you for taking action. I will reward you for that.
Yeah, it's also a nice way of putting it. I agree with you. It's a nicer way of just making sure that you get that action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, Amanda, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But before we go, obviously you have got a fantastic free download for us about reverse engineering your annual goals. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what the audience can expect from it?
Yes, so this comes a little bit from my corporate background. As I mentioned, when I was in finance, I did a lot of goal planning. In financial goal planning, we're focusing more on like an end of maybe a retirement goal, things like that, but we're still reversing then how do we work it from, you know, today to the next month to the next year and so on. So it was something that I wanted to then bring to the business sense and how to run a business. But now I've related it specifically into goal planning. This came out early in the 2020 was when I added it to the website. Naturally began the year. People are still diving into that goal planning. So what this will do is it gives you, you know, just, it's a workbook. So it's 5-7 pages, something like that, workbook that helps you understand how can we set a goal first? What does that goal need to look like? Yes, we dip into a SMART goal, right? It needs to be specific, measurable, all these kinds of things. Some basics of how to put together a goal. But then we need to start to break it down. What's that quarterly goal? The example I like to walk through is I want to make 6 figures. Okay, it's not a very amazing goal. It's a great goal to achieve, but it takes a lot more work than just I want to make 6 figures. So if someone comes to me with that, okay, well, 6 figures, let's divide that out. Then what's our first quarter? Is that first quarter that we're going to need to work on your package, because maybe your package will never get you to 6 figures. Maybe something with, you know, who your audience is, like some of these things that you have to break down into that first quarter. Okay, so now stick on the first quarter. Now we have 3 months in the first quarter. So what's going to be our focus for month number 1, month number 2, month number 3? And then again, now we're in February. So we'd be working on whatever goals we set up for February. This now allows you to then look back, okay, gosh, quarter 1, holy cow, I completely realigned my offer. I raised my prices. You know, I built my audience by 4,000 people or whatever it is. And you might not be at 6 figures yet, but that was an annual goal, right? But you can at least now still see some stepping stones that you've been able to achieve to help you get there.
Yes.
And that's what I mean by reverse engineering is, if your goal is that you want 6 figures by June, then don't say it's an annual goal, right? If it's an annual goal, then expect some point by December to get there, but then don't beat yourself up because it's July and you're not there yet.
Yes.
You should have set up the right amount of stepping stones to then hopefully get you to 6 figures by the end of the year.
Thank you so much for giving that. I think it is such a great download. For those of you listening, please go below this video or below the audio. The link will be there in my show notes. So by all means, go and get it now, because I think it is such a great way as well to think about goals. And for those of you who've never set up goals, oh my gosh, this is the perfect way to start. And for those of you who want to touch up on your goals, maybe go and rework them, go and have a look at this free download from Amanda, which I think is fantastic. Amanda, thank you so much again for your time on the podcast. This has been really amazing. I'm so glad that you've spoken to us about how to package a profitable offer, which I think makes a lot more sense for those listening, feeling now a little bit more comfortable as well, that they can, number one, raise their prices, but also get a lot more clearer on where they need to go from here. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Absolutely. I surely enjoyed being here. Thank you everybody for listening, and I appreciate your time. Absolutely.
No problem. And we'll be in touch very soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.